video on this Stilton powder that I made. So I extracted the fat from the Stilton. I'll show you the fat. I extracted the fat from the Stilton by frying it or heating it and moving it around, and the fat comes out of it, splits out of it. You're left with that delicious umami kind of tasty fat, and then you're left with the residue, which I then dried out in the oven on some kitchen paper to soak up the rest of the fat, and then ground it down in the spice grinder, and you're left with this Stilton powder. And I end up with things I'm never entirely sure what I'm going to do with them. So I was kind of thinking today we really should do something with that. So I'm going to do a few different things. I'm just going to kind of cut to the chase with everything. So I will, whatever I'm doing over the weekend, will kind of have a go at. So I've cooked some pasta, done the chefy thing where you cook with the pasta water. Well, I'm going to put it through some pasta. I'll put it through some mashed potatoes. We'll put it in a white sauce. We'll put it in some a cheese sauce. See if it makes like a white wine, like a white sauce kind of cheese sauce type of thing. We'll put it in some soup. We'll make like a cream soup and see what it tastes like in a cream soup. And we'll put it through some fried potatoes as well. And if there's anything else that kind of pops up, did I say mashed potatoes? Can't remember. But anything else that kind of pops up, oh, we'll be having some eggs over the weekend, so we'll use it as a seasoning on some eggs as well. So, a little bit of water in there. Just kind of get it moving around. Just might have lost a bit of heat, so we just need to heat it up. I don't know how it's going to melt because there's no fat left in it. So, I don't know what's going to happen. So, I've already seasoned this. And as you can see in the bottom of the pan, it's already kind of started to form a sauce. It's just cheap pasta. I'm not bothered about using more expensive pasta. I just kind of think I'm only faffing around. I'm only going to eat it for myself for dinner. So we'll just kind of see how we go. I need that water, don't I? So I've turned that off. Although we should be able to cook it kind of quite hard because there's no fat to split out of it. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I don't know if it'll form a sauce, but I put extra lard in with the pasta just because we've lost the fat out of the cheese. So looks like it's kind of coming together. Certainly want more in. Can you imagine? Yeah. So I did try making a pasta with Stilton rinds, but the rinds did not want to melt successfully. I think they just dried out too much. So if you're ever kind of making sauces like this, it needs to be a little bit wet. Now there needs to be fat in the cheese, and it doesn't need to be too hard. But so, that's not too bad. Right, let's give it a taste. See what we think. So I kind of think it'll be Stilton-y pastry. I can smell the Stilton. I just made this Stilton powder from the leftover Stilton from work, so I like cutting down on the amount of waste the amount of things that I put in the bin. No, it's pretty good actually. You'd never know. That was Stilton, but it needs more. And it needs a little bit more liquid. I think this will be the longest part of the video. Me faffing around with pasta rather than just adding it to all things. It's not just melted into the liquid. I can see it. It's a bit grainy in the bottom of the pan. I don't think the camera will pick that up on my phone, but it might just be a case of if you make a pasta with a creamy sauce, it might just be better adding the Stilton powder to that, but rather than doing the catchy peppy type of thing. I pronounced that wrong. I apologise to anyone in Italian who's listened to this. So that's pretty good as well. Pretty good. But I think we're probably better making a creamy sauce first, then adding that to the creamy sauce, and then add that to the pasta. But we'll see when we make a white sauce and flavour it with some of that. Scrambled eggs with Stilton powder in. We know from the pasta that we need to use quite a bit. It's not as pungent. It smells stronger than it tastes, in all honesty. So, clean fork, because that one's got turmeric on it. How's that taste? Put even more in. Doesn't taste cheesy. Doesn't taste cheesy. You just get that cheese, the funk of the cheese flavour, rather than it being cheesy. That's what I'm going to say here. Lovely. So I've just fried up some potatoes with a bit of onion for a bit of hash. So let's put in some of this Stilton seasoning. Are we going to call it that? Put salt and pepper in. We have to be quite generous with it, so maybe that much. Smell it. I think if you're not a fan of Stilton, you're not going to like it. So let's give it a taste. Nice. Well, if it works with fried potatoes, sauteed potatoes, hash, browns, that type of thing, roast potatoes, they'll all work with that. I've made a bit of white sauce or something else. Let's put some of these granules in, powder, give it a mix around, and give it a taste. I think it will be like when you add a bit of mustard to a white sauce or a cheese sauce. A bit thick as this. Doesn't matter. It's just thickened up in the pan a little bit too much. I think it'll add a little bit of piquancy to it. So how does it taste? Might need more. Yeah, so it gives it that savoury element that a bit of mustard would give it, without being overly cheesy. You can certainly smell it. It smells stronger than it tastes. Yeah, it's like a dish improver. So we've kind of made something that's like umami flavour without being overly cheesy. It's not really cheesy in taste, but there we go. So works in a white sauce, and it'll work. So therefore, it'll work as another background flavour in a cheese sauce. So it would give more of a depth of flavour to a cheese sauce. So you put a regular cheese in, then put a few spoonfuls of that in, and it would improve it immensely. Potatoes. So what do we reckon? Well, we've learned that we need to put more in than we think. So a teaspoon and a half. Haven't over seasoned the potatoes, but I have put lots of butter in. That is the secret of mashed potatoes, by the way. Salt and as much butter as you can get away with. That'll do. Nice again. Simple white onion soup. Teaspoon and a half. That's about a teaspoon and a half, isn't it? Yeah, I kind of think you've got to be careful which soups we'd use this Stilton powder in. White onion soup, yes. Nice in a mushroom soup, that type of thing. Not going to work in a carrot soup. Not going to work in a butternut squash kind of soup. But certainly in a white onion soup. smells nice. That smells nice. So, how's it taste? And I think that's about it for all the things I'm going to put this in. A bit more. That much. So a bit more. So, summing up, I think because it's not that strong a flavour. There's umami flavour there, but it's not that strong. It can be used as a background flavouring without it becoming overpowering. So we could add more of that, and it would turn into a white onion and Stilton soup, which would be very nice. But we can rein that amount of Stilton powder we put in back, not put as much in, and get around a background flavour to it without it becoming overpowering. Yeah, that's lovely. So it's Stilton powder, but it is like an umami powder. I think probably could do the same with Parmesan rinds. So I don't think I've got a Parmesan token, but I've got a cheap one. So that rind at the end that you plonk into soups and stews and risottos and things, and it gives the flavour. So once you've used all the cheese off it, you end up with a rind, and you put the rind in things. I think we could probably powder that down and use it in the same way. Although it's quite tough. I did have a go at grating it, and it didn't grate particularly very well. So, and it probably would mess up the blender. But that would probably be worth something looking into, because I do keep them and stick them in the freezer. But anyway, so that's interesting from my point of view. A bit of a faff. I can't imagine how anyone realistically is going to make a Stilton powder. It's a lot, because it's quite expensive. You can't buy cheap Stilton. But if you did have some that was kind of going off, you could turn it into a powder. But anyway, so interesting from my point of view. Probably pointless from your point of view. So a success for me, probably a failure for you.